We are honored. I know you've been tuned in. You've been waiting for this for a couple weeks now. Well, it's here, and we are delighted to have Secretary, Department of Veterans Affairs, Bob McDonald, on the line with us, and we've got so much more to talk about. Bob, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Darren. Great to talk to you.
Excellent. Okay, so we left off, and I just had to fall back to this real quick. You had retired from Procter & Gamble, and then you get a phone call. Tell us about that from the White House.
Well, I had retired from Procter & Gamble. My wife and I were getting ready to relocate to Florida. Actually, we had bought a home in Orlando, and got a phone call, and basically the first few phone calls were from friends of mine in business who said that people in the White House were calling them, asking them about me. So they figured something was up. And then I got the call from the White House. The funny thing was, at the time I got the call, I was at a wedding somewhere. My wife laughs about this, and I was wearing a white linen suit. And given the situation and the urgency of getting me involved, I went with that white linen suit onto the White House. My wife said I'm probably the first person that ever showed up at the White House with a blue shirt and a white linen suit on. There was a lot of urgency to get this done.
Oh, phenomenal story. Yeah, I can see where she'd be ribbing you on that for the rest of your life. I got to ask some more questions because I know our listeners, they understand that the VA is this massive machine and it is a typical government bureaucracy in many respects. But what is your take on the VA employees, the people that work for you and work for us, and how they view their responsibilities, and what's the state of the morale within the various lines of business the VA provides?
Well, we have about 360,000 employees if you take part-time and full-time, and of those 360,000, I mean, basically VA, if it were a company in the United States, would be Fortune 6.
Wow.
So let's say the sixth largest company in the United States. If I look across the vast majority of the VA employees, they're incredibly committed to this outstanding mission, best mission in government of caring for those caring for veterans who have fought and put their lives in danger for our freedom. And of course, about a third of them are veterans themselves. So this is about people like me, veterans, taking care of veterans. So the idea that there's this vast majority of malicious people in VA is obviously not the case. Now, obviously, too, if you have 360,000 people, you're going to have occasionally some bad actors.
Sure.
And we're dealing with those bad actors. Since I've been secretary, I think we've separated about 2,900 people or so over the roughly 20 months that I've been the secretary. But the vast majority are great people. During the crisis, I think we lost our way. We lost sight of our mission. We lost sight of our values that are so important to our success. We did have some people do some bad things, but one of the first things we did as secretary was we trained and we recommitted ourselves to that mission and to those values. And every speech I give now, I always start with the mission and values, and every year we ask all employees to recommit themselves to that mission and to those values.
Okay, so explain this. I see the pins, the lapel pins, I Care. That's one of your initiatives. What is that, and how does it relate?
Well, I Care is an acronym that stands for our values, integrity, commitment, advocacy, advocating for the veteran, respect, treating a veteran with respect, asking for respect back, excellence, providing excellence in care. Those are the values, and those values, what we're trying to create is a principle-based organization where employees decide based on those values how to behave rather than what many government bureaucracies are, which is a rule-based organization.
Sure.
An organization where an individual is looking for a rule to hide behind. I found an organization, this is true of organizations in general that are in crisis, they tend to become very rule-based. They tend to shut down. They tend to close the windows, draw the drawbridge up. And reality is, that's normal human psychology, but in reality is, the leader's job is get the people out of the office, get them out there interacting with customers. I've been to about 300 different VA facilities now in 20 months.
Wow.
You got to be out there with the customers, doing town hall meetings, listening to your customer, taking their advice and incorporating it into your transformation plan, which we call My VA, the My VA transformation plan. And that's why those values are so important, because they guide the behavior based on principles, not rules.
Oh, that's a very important distinction as well. And you, with the history that you have, 33 years leading Procter & Gamble, that's impressive. So everybody out there in American Warrior Radioland, I hope you're listening, because this is the man that is steering the ship, the big VA ship right now. And I support you 100%. I know all of our listeners are keenly interested in finding out one thing, and that, well, lots of things, but one of them. You mentioned that a third of the VA employees are veterans themselves. Are there incentive programs or recruitment efforts going on now to bring that number even higher, or are we at a stalemate until some of those people leave or separate from VA?
No, Garen, actually there is a federal hiring preference for veterans. If you go to usajobs.gov, those are all the available federal jobs. And then we have an interagency council that involves the secretaries of many of the branches of government. And we meet like once a quarter, and we review what percent of those jobs are being filled by veterans. And we're trying to fill every job in the federal government with veterans. And in fact, I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, we have the highest percentage of veterans employed in the federal government that we've ever had. This has been a key initiative of President Obama and the First Lady, is to get more and more veterans employed by the federal government. So there is a veteran preference right now for hiring.
Praise God.
Yeah, and I think that's vital. And I was wondering, with all the returning combat veterans, many of whom are separating, and those that, of course, are attempting to reintegrate back in civilian life, which area of the VA comp and benefits or health care is, in your opinion, in most need of improvement?
Well, there's two places, Glenn, that we're really concentrating on. The first is making sure we move further upstream, because we don't want to have any break between the person's active duty service and their ability to get their medical care and their benefits from the VA. So our Transition Assistance Program, or TAP, we have moved further upstream, let's say 120 plus days. And we're working with DOD on this, so that before you actually separate, you have your physical exam, you have your compensation and pension exam, you get a job, and we go on to bases. For example, I was at Schofield Barracks, Pearl Harbor, Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, and we worked there with the commanding officer of the unit to and the NCOs to tell them what their available benefits were, give them the counseling they needed, sign them up for voc rehab, sign them up for benefits, and then we had a job fair right there on the base. So there was really, at that time, no excuse for the veteran to have a job before they got out, before they did their permanent change of station. And I'm thrilled with that, because I remember when I got out of the military in 1980, pretty much at the time you decided you were leaving, you were a little bit ostracized. Today, the commanding officer stands up, the NCOs stand up and say, it's my responsibility to help your transition, which is a great place to be.
Oh, no kidding. And that whole influence of reintegration being focused on before they separate, and also the combination between, well, it's the joint VA-DOD initiative with the TAP program to make sure that they have all the information they need to pursue life after military. And that's what's so important to AVET Project. We really push that with our PR&R, our Project Recuperation Reintegration Retreats. And it's foundational for us. I mean, even that's why this radio program is on the air. Getting information, the right information, correct, Len?
The right information right here all the time.
So that they can make informed choices, so they know what their benefits are, and they have a career path. Not everybody is blessed with the intellect or the opportunities that maybe somebody like you have had, sir, but to give them a format, a template to follow, and that's what we do with PR&R and even the Healing Vets Through Water Therapy. but we got so much to get to. I just want to ask you, during a recent interview, your new Undersecretary for Health, Dr. Shulkin, spoke to American Warrior Radio audience about different recruitment efforts in getting enough doctors and other care providers within the VA.
Right.
How is that going?
It's going well, but we could do even more. We've hired, since I've been secretary, we've hired about 1,400 doctors, about 2,300 nurses, which is great. I mean, we've gotten Congress to give us more money. We've also gotten Congress to give us more residencies, because one of the ways we get more doctors and nurses is we create residencies in VA facilities. I think I said earlier, we train about 70% of the doctors in the country through these residency programs. But I'd like to get more, and one of the ways we could get more is by changing some of our medical professional positions from what's called Title V to Title 38. Title 38 gives me the ability to recruit directly, and it also gives me ability to pay competitively with the private sector, because that's who we're competing with. And we've got a bill in Congress right now called the Vets First Act, which Senator Johnny Isakson, Senator Dick Blumenthal have been putting together for us, omnibus legislation that would give us the ability to recruit even more competitively, and we're looking forward to that. I've been to over 24 medical schools recruiting. I have a recruiting speech, and I believe if I don't do it myself, who else is going to do it? So I go out, I recruit.
Amazing.
And, I also speak to the Association of Medical School Deans. And again, remember, 7 out of 10 of these people have trained at the VA, so they all know it's the best client you can have in the world. It's the best place to work, because they get to practice holistic medicine rather than the kind of balkanized medicine that exists in this country. You know, the VA, as the largest integrated healthcare system in the country, treats the whole person, not just part of them. We treat the medical problems, we treat the mental problems, we treat the spiritual problems, and we use whatever techniques work, whether it's equine therapy, acupuncture, yoga. I mean, we will use what works, and we'll prove what works, and that's why VA has been so critical as an innovative source for American medicine.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And for all those people out there listening, whether you're a veteran, whether you're on active duty or a family member or just somebody out in the general public, if you're interested in helping the vets, then you get involved and you talk to your legislators and other elected officials about the Veterans First Act. And we'll put some information up on the social media pages about that, because it's inspiring to hear the leader of the VA, because everybody, this is your Secretary, Department of Veterans Affairs, Bob McDonald, that's talking to us right now. To have somebody of his stature saying that he's going out there personally and making recruitment speeches.
I'm totally impressed. And speaking about what works, in your estimation, has the Choice Card program been a success? And if so, in what ways will the program, and if so, what ways? But also, will the program sunset when the money is appropriated dry up, or do you see it continuing outside of the existing fee basis program?
Right. Well, we're very supportive of the Choice program. I mean, when the Choice program was passed in the fall of 2014, we were in crisis.
Yes.
There was way too much demand and not enough supply, not enough capacity. And at the time, everyone was well-intentioned. We tried to set up a program in a very short period of time, but it hasn't worked as effectively as it could. You may recall there were stipulations. You had to be 40 miles from a VA facility,
right,
or you had to have an appointment beyond 30 days, or you had to have a geographic barrier. And at the time, the 40 miles was thought of in geodesic distance, meaning as the crow flies. Since then, we've changed that. We've changed that to driving distance, which is included as helped include more veterans being possible. But there are a lot of changes that we're looking for going forward. There are 7 different ways for veterans to get care in the community. Each one has different specifications. Each one has different reimbursement rates. Incredibly complex. VA right now is considered a secondary provider, not a primary provider of those ways. And as a result, many veterans are getting bills and different co-pays. It's very confusing. we have now put together a bill last October that we gave to Congress that would consolidate all those 7 ways for care in the community into one fee basis, one set of specifications. It'd be easier for everyone to navigate and would be best for veterans. The Senate has chosen to take some of the elements of that consolidated care and put that in the Veterans First Act. So that's all good news. You know, maybe 8 of the 10. And what we're doing is we're working with them to see if we can get the other couple of factors in there. But it's a step in the right direction. We know it's a good program. It needs to be improved. We get the Veterans First Act passed out of the Senate and then get similar legislation in the House, and that will sustain the Choice Act. It will keep the program of community care going.
Exactly. Now, Bob, you know, AVET Project serves veterans far and wide, all across the U.S. and abroad, and seldom a week goes by that we don't get a question from an amputee and about how long it takes to acquire the latest and greatest prosthesis. Is the VA doing all it can to provide the finest prosthetic limbs and this polytrauma clinic for these catastrophically disabled vets, or do you see that we need to improve on that area?
Well, I think we're doing a pretty good job in the prosthetic area, but if somebody is facing times that are too long, they need to let their medical center director know or let me know. I mean,
and don't be bashful. Sure.
Yeah, as you know, my email address is on the internet and my phone number. But I got to tell you, I'm really excited about some work we're doing. About 3 weeks ago, we did an innovative operation for 2 veterans in Salt Lake City, working with the University of Utah Medical School, something called osteointegration. This is a common, well, not common, but this program has been done outside the U.S. We're now trying to perfect it to get FDA clearance. But basically, rather than just putting a polyester sleeve around the remaining part of the limb, we actually put a titanium rod into the bone, and then we snap the prosthetic device onto that rod. After the operation, we did this for 2 veterans. Several days after the operation, I got an email from one of the veterans that said, "This is amazing." He said, "For the first time, I can feel the grout cracks between the tiles in my shower." I mean, this is a breakthrough, and these are the kinds of innovations that only VA does. I mean, did you know VA did the first liver transplant, the first kidney transplant, the first electronic medical record? It was a VA nurse that came up with the barcode to connect patients with medicine. VA uses sensors with prosthetics. I watched a guy in our polytrauma center in Tampa climb a rock wall with a prosthetic leg because the leg had sensors and knew how to move so he could climb that wall. We're now connecting sensors in the brain to prosthetic devices. We know more about polytrauma and traumatic brain injury. We held a brain trust summit a couple of weeks ago. We had the nation's experts together. So, I mean, this is the kind of innovation that American taxpayers, American medicine, and the American people, not just veterans, are getting from their VA.
You are such an awesome interview, sir, and you've got so much to say about so many things. You mentioned the Polytrauma TBI clinic over in Tampa and Dr. Stephen Scott. He has this grand plan. Yeah, he has a grand plan of an on-site rehab complex with homes and cottages for these catastrophically disabled vets. Do you think that has a future?
I do. One of the things we're now getting some experience with is something we call P3, or Public-Private Partnerships. Public-private partnerships enable us to work with strategic partners, which is one of our 5 MyVA strategies. You know, we want to work with strategic partners. We know we can't do this alone, but we need legislation to do this. So we're working with Congress to try to get the ability to join with public-private partners in order to amplify our ability to do things like this. One of our first hopes is to build a new medical facility in Omaha, Nebraska, where the community has come together. They've raised a lot of money, but right now we need a change in the law to be able to do that. We can't do that today. And so the congressman there, Congressman Ashford and Congressman Fortenberry, are working for us to change the law. And I think if we can do that, the kind of public-private partnerships we can create all across the country would benefit veterans in a big way.
For
We
sure.
wouldn't just be relying on Congress for money.
Exactly, and that kind of dovetails into an initiative that AVET Project has had since 2010 on the active duty side, and that's our Deployed Troops Support Act, where we're able to use military transports to haul stuff to our troops, stuff that they need. So it is about action. It's about taking the right approach to get things done. I got to jump on because we're running out of time. I can't believe it, but on the other side of the VA house, the VBA, and that's the Veterans Benefit Administration, there's a whole lot going on there. And I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about the digitized processing, because I know there's a real push to have all claims submitted electronically. What's your opinion? How are we doing on that?
Yeah, I mean, the transformation of the Veterans Benefits Administration over the last couple of years has been nothing short, in my opinion, as a business leader, as astounding. I mean, if you look 3 years ago, I mean, virtually everything was done in paper. Today, everything's done in digital format. We've gone from a peak of about 611,000 claims that were older than 125 days in March of 2013 to today having about 75,000 greater than 125 days. And most of them are waiting for some new piece of information, either from DOD or from the veteran. But the idea of going to a digital format, I mean, we've been able to eliminate 5,000 tons of paper. We've also been able to go to what we call a national work queue, which we've done just in the last couple of weeks, which allows us to move claims around the country depending upon where our capacity exists or where our expertise exists. And that's one of the reasons the rate and the accuracy of dealing with these claims has actually picked up, is because of the flexibility we have with the digitization.
And the higher utilization, yeah.
Exactly, higher utilization of the capacity that we have.
Well, and while we're talking on handling the claims, sir, it's been a big push of mine and Garen's for quite some time, and we spoke to the previous Undersecretary for Benefits about this, and we're hoping that there's going to be some positive movement on it, and that's getting, in some form or fashion, the actual rating codes included in the rating, either in the rating itself or in the cover sheet with the rating, so that we, the people out here in the field helping the veterans face to face every day, know exactly what they were rated, so we can go to the book and go to the regs and look it up and find out where to go from there.
Yeah, I'm Glenn. I'm with you 1,000%. In fact, I'm here right now at My VA, which is the name of our Transformation External Advisory Committee. I've brought together a lot of business, government, non-government leaders who are advising me on the transformation. One of the things I said as we went through this briefing is I want every letter we send, every communication we send to the veteran, I want it written in plain English. I want it written by somebody who's as simple-minded as I am. I don't want it written by a general counsel. Remember, I talked about moving from a rules-based organization run by the general counsel to a principle-based organization focused on veterans. I mean, we need to put this stuff in plain English, and we need to be transparent so every single veteran knows and understands that letter that they're getting or that communication they're getting. And
exactly.
This morning I said, I want a date. I want a date by which every single letter will be written in plain English.
Exactly. And Secretary, I got...
These things, you have no idea.
I know, and I got to cut you off. This is American Warrior Radio. Secretary, Department of Veterans Affairs, Bob McDonald. Thank you so much for joining us on this special edition.
Garen, thank you, and thank you, Glenn, and thanks for all you do for veterans. We can't do this by ourselves, and it's because of veterans like you that make a difference for all veterans. We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And as always, don't forget, thank a vet.